Hey, this is Nick from Income Digs. Welcome to this video tutorial, and today's tutorial is actually pretty special and exciting. It's a tutorial, but it's also a demo because today I'm showing you the brand new, fully updated project management workspace and template for Podio. All right, so this is a template that I've built, a workspace setup that is specifically geared toward those of you who invest in real estate and do rehab projects. Okay, so usually this is in the form of flipping, right? Purchasing, rehabbing, and then selling. But it can be for any kind of rehab project, really, even for your rental properties, any kind of construction. And so what we've done is completely revamped how the whole workspace operates. We've added a ton of super powerful flows, and you get all of it with the template itself. So I'm going to show you some of the highlights of the system today, and show you the real power behind it. And if you want to purchase it, that's fine. That's exciting and great. I think it's going to be really valuable to you. But even if you just want to pick up a few tips on how things can potentially work, that's okay too. So we're going to dive in. I'm going to again go over the highlights, and then I'm going to show you some of the actual cool things that we built in. So what we're looking at right now is the workspace home page. Now, one thing that I'll get out of the way right off the bat is any of the templates that I provide to my customers, I'm going to give you everything as I think it would be useful to you. So that means the workspace homepage, the different views and the layouts and all of that stuff. But keep in mind that once you have it, it's completely customizable. Okay, you own it. It will show up in your own workspace for you to edit, add to, customize as you see fit. All right, I'll have some suggestions for you, but you can of course make it your own. There's no subscription fees at all. It's just one-time flat fee. But what we're looking at right now is kind of my workspace homepage. I have some tiles up here of what projects I have going on, what deliverables I have, maybe the bids and deliverables due this week. I have spending, project costing, all of that showing up on my workspace homepage. The workspace is really primarily set up around projects, and that is to be expected as as a project management template. Okay, so this would show what types of projects you have going on. Now, I tell most of my customers that the main two apps of this entire workspace are projects and deliverables. Okay, they're related to each other, they're intertwined. Basically, the way it works is you have a project, something you're going to be working on. The deliverables are all of the pieces of work that you're going to be doing to that project. Okay, the demo, the rough plumbing, the rough electric, all that. And they're all related to each other. The other apps here are supporting apps that help out a lot. Let's get into one of these. Let's dive into what a project looks like, okay? So you have some basic admin project information at the top. We have owning, managing entity. This is related to an entities app. I know a lot of investors out there have multiple LLCs or corporations. You would indicate a project manager for the project, the type of project it is. Status is, of course, important to know where the project is in the process. Permit required. We have some templating built in, baseline dates, real-time dates. These are calculated off of our deliverables. I'm going to talk about templating, and I'm going to show you how that works. That's a really cool feature that I think is going to save you a ton of time. We of course have budgeting, so we have the ability to do a ballpark budget. We also have the ability to do a bottom-up budget, meaning I'm going to calculate my total cost based off of my deliverables. All right. Who are the contractors on the job? This automatically gets populated by the contractors per the deliverables. And of course your project tracking, how you're doing on track, behind, your spending to date, and some really cool references and reporting that we can do as well. All right, so the project is where you would come for your basic high-level information for any given project. I spend most of my work, most of my time in the Deliverables app. The Deliverables app, again, is your scope of work for a project, okay? So if I were to take that same project I was just looking at, which was 34 long, and filter my view to 34 long, here's all the stuff I got to do for 34 long. Here's all the deliverables I need to do, okay? This is where you would make up your scope of work. Now, the Deliverables app contains a ton of useful information. For one, it just tells you what you need to get done, right? Here's the scope of work for the project. But as we dive into a deliverable, you'll see that we can hold a ton of more information in there. For one, we relate to a categories app. This helps us organize our deliverables and also our budgets. So we're doing some budgeting within this workspace, and if we want to know how much we're spending in a given area of a project, this category is going to help us to organize that. You would also potentially indicate dates. I'm going to talk about the calendar in a second. Progress for a given deliverable, 0 to 100. Whether this deliverable is part of the original scope or maybe it's a change order, something that was added on later. So you can do some analysis to see how are we doing, was our original scope of work all we needed to do, or was there a bunch of change orders? Of course, our status and our cost inputs. Let's find one that has a little bit more data. Let's grab this one here. So we have cabinet installation. So I have baseline dates here. And now the question of, do I allow a baseline date change? This is an example of a workflow that we are building in that we are forcing, if I don't allow baseline changes, I'm telling the user and my team that you can't just go in here and update the baseline dates. Now, why would this be useful? Well, I found in doing rehabs myself, I want to know those baseline dates so that at the end of a project or during the project, I can see how I am performing to my schedule. Am I on target? Am I ahead? Am I behind? So if we allow our users to potentially change these dates, that might throw off my metrics. Now what we do, because this indicates no, is that the system will kick this back to the old dates. All right, so that's an example of a workflow that we build in for you that that helps to maintain the data integrity. Okay. Now we talk about, one is our progress and our dates. Okay. Also though is our costing. All right, and so our cost inputs, we have material items, we have labor items, and then we have other costs as well. Okay, so you can put in your material quantity, your material cost per unit. I'm going to talk about materials in a second. And that gives you your total material cost. And then we go down here, we got labor quantity and labor cost per unit. And that gives us our labor cost. So we got material cost, labor cost. You have the ability to put in other cost if you want to as well. And that gives you your cost subtotal. All right. Now that's almost the final cost, but you might have noticed on the projects app we had a contingency. Okay, and what that is, that's a percentage that you estimate how much the deliverable is going to cost, and if we want to give ourselves a little bit of a buffer, the project level gives us a percentage, and if we decide that this deliverable is part of that contingency, we're going to add that percentage to it. All right. Now, of course, if you indicate no, no contingency will be added. Okay, and that's your total cost. You can also add in a variance here, and the way that I look at this is you set your baseline cost much like your dates. Here's what I think it's going to cost, but as you move through your project, you might realize that this is going to cost a little bit extra or a little bit less. You would put in a running variance so that you know how much money you have left to spend. All right, down here we got a cool area which is called request bids. Now this is an area where you can automatically send to your contractors, which is another app in the system, a request for a bid. All right. So now this one is install cabinets. Let's find a different one real quick. Let's do like sheetrock, and let's actually add some info to this because this is kind of blank right now. So this is new sheetrock, right? Let's add some baseline dates to it. Now, because it was blank, I should be able to add baseline dates to it. Okay. Also, revised dates are going to automatically populate with the baseline dates. Now, what is a revised date? Revised date is your real-time date. Like, my baseline is set. My revised date is when I'm actually going to do it. That's what hits the calendar. Okay, and I'm going to talk about the calendar in a little bit. All right. What are the details? Now, this is essential that we put in the details for the request for bid because the system will not allow us to send a request for bid unless we have details in here. So this would be something like hang and finish 1,000 square feet of half-inch drywall, ceilings and walls. Okay? Blocking in place, something like that. All right, let's do our cost inputs. Okay, so we're going to estimate maybe what this whole thing's going to cost. So let's say that we got 1,000 square feet of drywall. I'm going to leave material blank again. I'll come back to that. 1,000 square feet of drywall, and let's say that the material cost on drywall is, say, like 35 cents per square foot. Maybe it's like 45 cents per square foot. I don't know. Okay, and then let's indicate labor. All right, let's say that we're going to estimate maybe 3 full days of a couple guys working. Actually, let's go 48 hours at like $25 an hour. All right. Okay. and let's put in another, like an other cost of $450. Okay, and now what we can do, so those things will update as the calculations hit, but what we can also do is request a bid. All right, now I'm going to show you how this works. This is a relationship to our contractors app. Okay, and so what you would do here is you would indicate one or more contractors from whom you would like to request bids. So let's say we want to request a bid from this guy, Nick the Drywaller, who again is a vendor in our vendors app. We can click here to email them or text them a request for a bid. All right, so if I click email, what the system's going to do is first going to check to make sure we have all the required information in the system. Okay, like do we have the details in and all of that, right? And then it's going to send an email to that vendor's email address. And here it is, right here. Okay, so this is the vendor's name. We would like to request a bid. Here's the project, here's a deliverable, and here's the details. Are you interested in this or not? Now, anytime a vendor would reply to this, and this works the same way with text messaging as well, all of those replies will show up in the Podio system itself. Okay, so and one thing as that's kind of coming up too, you'd notice our material costs updated and everything. But so that's great. We're getting bids in. Now you can see here the email comes through that this person's interested. So you can also manage your bids in this system. Now this is relatively simple. This is just a way to track bids. So let's say that guy Nick the Drywaller was interested in providing a bid. We would record our bids here, okay, and they're maybe giving us different pricing, right? And they're maybe saying, let's say it's 53 hours at 25. Okay, so they're giving us their bid, and that's how much they would potentially do the job for. And then what you can do is you can look at all your bids and track them. I like the card view as well, a cool way that you can kind of take it and move it throughout. If and when we accept a bid, what's going to happen is the system is going to understand that we've accepted the bid. It's going to kick back to that deliverable and update all of the costs. Okay, so if we move over there, we accepted that bid, and so it updated all of our costs to that bid, and it updated the contractor on the job. Okay, we've accepted it. So that bidding process is a really cool thing that we built into this system that works nicely. Now let me talk about materials. Okay, so what materials is, it's another app over here. This is what we built into my business to track all of the materials that we're using on different projects. And specifically it comes to, we used it a lot for finished materials. Okay, so like finished plumbing. What are the faucets? What are the toilets? What are the sinks that we keep putting in? Okay, so you can take your deliverables and indicate what materials you're using on them. And why is that useful? Well, it would, one, tell your project team what to install, right? When you go shopping, here's what you should install. The other thing it would do is it would give you past history. Okay, so if you're kind of wondering what the heck what you put into your projects, you'll have a history of all those materials that you've used. So let's find one and show you what it might look like. I'm just trying to find, here we go. Okay, so here's a deliverable to install a shower head, and I'm going to get rid of this one and just kind of pull one up. Okay, so I'm going to pull up a new material, and I can search for Moen shower faucet. Okay, and it's going to populate my material item and my retail price per unit. Now that is calculated from the materials app itself. Okay, so I can look at this. This is my materials item number, the quality. You can list this so that you can start filtering who's the manufacturer, who's the vendor. This relates to our vendors app. Link to the item, potentially an image, the retail price, etc. Okay, and it's a really simple app, but I found it extremely powerful to start tracking what you're putting into your projects. Okay, so that populates there, and we know what we're using. Now, of course, with deliverables, you're going to want to track what's complete and what's not. Okay, so I again find the card view extremely useful for this. To say, let me grab for this project, here are my deliverables. I can click and move them throughout. And actually, one thing I'm going to just change for everybody real quick is on our card layout, we need, of course, the deliverable name. Okay, so I can take these items and move them to in progress, or of course I can move them to complete. Now, that's a good way to track status. A good way to track schedules is through the calendar. Okay, so that's another view where we show exactly what we're working on in a calendar view. Now, these projects are all colored differently so that we can see them all at once. You can, of course, filter this down to just view one project at a time. And what's great about this view is you can click and drag. You can shorten or lengthen the dates. And this is all the real-time dates, okay, not your baseline. So a calendar view is a really cool way to look at things. All right. So that is deliverables. You're going to spend a lot of time there. That's where you're going to actually get work done. Of course, we can also track expenses. Okay, so you can track not only what you're budgeting to spend money on, but what you actually spend money on. All right, every expense is going to have a date, the type, either materials versus labor, category, project, the amount, vendor if you want it, description if you want it. And that allows us to track in the Budgets app not only our plan, but our actuals. Okay, so if we take the budget for, say, 34 long, I can see here's my list of categories, here's my budget, and then here's potentially what I'm spending. Okay, so let's take this one, for example. Okay, so I've budgeted $38.22 for this, for 34 long sheetrock. However, I've spent a total of $9.45, so I have $28.77 remaining. All right, and we can sum all that on the project level to know at a project, how much do I have left to spend. All right, so it's a really cool way to see exactly, your financials. We've talked about vendors. Categories, this is just your list, right? This is your list of categories. When you get this app package, I'm going to give you these 34. If you want to use them, great. If you don't want to use them, you can do your own. It's fine. Don't worry about updating that. One thing I'll show you, you might notice this inspection required. This is a cool little feature where, a lot of times we're working through these projects and we finish a deliverable and we need to do an inspection. Okay, so for 701 main, let me just pop over to the project. So if a permit is required on the project and we finish a deliverable that says I require an inspection, meaning that category requires an inspection, what that'll do is automatically give a task to your project manager to coordinate the inspection. All right, it's a really simple workflow, but it's extremely powerful to make sure we're getting those inspections done. All right. Some other workflows we built in at the project level. We have statuses set up for project setup. You know what I'm going to do actually to demonstrate some of this? Let's create a new project. I want to show you templates as well. So let's create a new project and we can do that. So I'm going to do a new project here. We'll call it 277 Depew. All right, who is the project manager? Let's say it's this Nick. Full rehab. We'll leave it in evaluation to start. We'll say that, yes, a permit's required. Let's give it a baseline start and finish. All right. Let's talk square footage for a second. And a ballpark. Give the project a 5% contingency. I'll add a featured image. All right, and this is just something that kind of just shows up in our badge view. And let's do that for now. So we got this new project. Okay, now automatically when the project gets created, the budgets will be created in the background. Okay, so those budgets, you don't have to worry about creating those. Those automatically get created. Now, if I were to do this without a template, I would then go to my deliverables. I don't have any deliverables yet. I would go here and start adding them. And that's fine. You can do that, and you should do that for certain projects. However, as you just start to build up a repository of projects, you're going to find that your scopes of work start to kind of look the same. Or maybe there's projects that should be used as a template or a baseline. So what we can do from projects, you might have noticed the field, is this a template or not? And so I can indicate which of my projects, past or even fake projects, I want to have listed as a template. And then I can take those that I'm just starting, and instead of manually creating all those deliverables, I can instead go down to here and select a template, let's say 34 long. And if I click this button here, create deliverables from template, it's going to automatically go to 34 long, grab the deliverables for that one, and add those as deliverables for this project. All right? It's a good way to get a starting point for a new project without having to manually go in there. All right. Now, of course, we'd expect that it's not going to be the exact same project, right? So you're going to have to go in and edit things, edit the cost inputs, probably add a few deliverables, maybe delete a few deliverables, and you would have everything that you need. So you see a bunch of stuff kind of happening in the background. Once deliverables are created successfully, you can see them in the deliverables app. So whereas I had 0 deliverables before, I now have 12 deliverables for 277 Depew, just like 34 long. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind, the baseline dates will not populate, because I could have done 34 long 2 years ago. So we would have no way of pulling in those dates. You're going to have to add those. But we would have in the, all the deliverables automatically there. Okay. So if I go to Depew, you'll notice that my baseline cost is already there. Now, I mentioned this contingency on the deliverables. You can see how we can toggle with it here. I can add a certain percentage to my baseline to increase that, right? Contractors on the job automatically gets populated from the deliverables app. And you can see all that kind of stuff happening in the background. So it's really a great way to automatically, create deliverables. One other little workflow we have is if we move to project setup, I have some tasks automatically assigned. Now, I expect you to look into this and maybe change this, but we're assigning tasks to the project manager, to the project supervisor, and to the admin. And what those are, so you're going to have a project manager per project, but I also have this team roles app. And what this does is it allows you to assign tasks to different roles on your team. Okay, so what you might have just saw with this new project is I assigned a task to complete project setup admin tasks. That gets assigned to the user whose role is admin. Review and approve the scope and budget goes to the project supervisor, and then the other ones go to the project manager. All right. Another thing that we built in, super cool, is we can automatically create PDFs for scope of work, materials list, and just a general project update. Okay, so what this does is it generates a document that maybe you would want to share with somebody from outside of your system. Okay, so they're not in Podio, so you can create this cool looking document that pretty much just shows them here's the scope of work, here's our baseline cost per square foot, baseline dates, what is the scope of work, and what is the cost of all that. All right, so it's a nice automatic way to do that stuff, and just click the button and it'll automatically be populated. Okay, so that's a pretty decent overview of the system. It does a ton. One thing I'm going to mention to you is the workflows. Okay, so there's a lot happening in the background here that you may or may not see, and I want to show you that in GlobyFlow. So if you're not familiar with GlobyFlow, it's okay, don't worry about it. You don't need to be familiar with GlobyFlow to use this system, but I want to show you that what we've built into this template is over 50 GlobyFlow workflows. And some of these are really simple, but some of these are really powerful, like emailing out to our vendors. All right. Now, when you get this system, you're going to get all these. Not only do you get them and they'll work right off the bat, but you can edit them, copy them, and learn from them as well. What I mean by learn from them is we do some really cool stuff in here where we're doing some error checking. We are doing some manual flows that are triggered elsewhere. You can see the way that we construct our workflows and then use them to build upon your business and your Podio setup, whether it be in this workspace or another one that you're using. All right. Now, you'll notice that we have numbers to a lot of our workflows. I do that as a way of trying to organize them for you so you can kind of see the way that something would potentially flow. Let's get into one just to show you. This is the request email bid from the deliverable. Again, you get this whole thing. Okay, and what is great about this type of a workflow is it's got so much in it that you can learn from. Okay, for one, up here we're doing some error checking. All right, I'm making sure that the deliverable details are filled in, that the contractors are filled in. Okay, and if they're not, we're not going to send the email. So we got some error checking in there. You also see how we can send an email, how we go and get the vendor's email address and send an email to them. All right. It's a cool way to learn about GlobiFlow, I will say. All right. So you get all that, you get these apps, you get the setup as I would recommend it to be, and you have a ready-to-go, world-class project management setup at your fingertips. One flat rate price, and it's yours. It's yours to edit. It's yours to customize. I'm right here if you have any questions. You can keep me in your workspace and just kind of ask me questions as you go. For those of you who don't use Podio yet, task management and communication is super, super useful. Okay, so what I mean by that is a way to manage all your tasks right here. Here's this one that was automatically created related to that 277 DPU. The communication, I encourage you and your team to talk about projects and deliverables right here on the app. So do an @mention to somebody and say, is this project ready to start? That's so useful because everything is going to be contained within your app workspace. All right. So that's kind of it for now. I will, of course, provide updates as they come along. If you're interested in this project management app template, if you'd like to set up a one-on-one where we dig in a little bit deeper to the functionality, I'm happy to do that. But other than that, get in touch, follow the link in the description there, and let's get in contact to get this into your workspace, into your system, so that you can start using it right away. Until next time, feel free to check out all the free resources available at incomedigs.com, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks.